But first, when you're in a public life, every day is consumed with things that are urgent but not necessarily important. Certainly not important to the lives of everyday voters who make or break governments. Take today's scandal du jour, the suggestion that there's something untoward following confirmation that the Trump administration approached the Morrison government for help in handling the Mueller probe into allegations of campaign meddling by Russia. It's all Canberra insiders wanted to talk about today when, to my mind, there'd be hardly more than a dozen households, outside our nation's capital of course, where this issue gets raised at the dinner table tonight. Now, forget Mueller. The bigger and more urgent issue for the Morrison government is not what happened on a phone call with the US president about a campaign 3 years ago. It's what's not happening now, promised in a campaign less than 6 months ago here in Australia, that matters. In May this year, the quiet Australians elected the Morrison government to get things done. And the fact that there's been plenty of talk and not much action is the real issue that needs discussion tonight, not the US president. Take power. For 2 years now, the government has been talking about keeping open the giant Liddell coal-fired power station that provides 10% of New South Wales electricity and keeps open the Tomago aluminium smelter, one of our largest industrial employers. No one wants a repeat of the closure of Hazelwood in Victoria, which cut Victoria's baseload capacity by 24%, produced a doubling of prices and has led to a series of rolling blackouts and brownouts over the past 2 years. But is there a plan to keep Liddell open? Well, no. Is there a plan to replace the lost baseload power when it's gone? No. There's the usual, excuse the phrase, blue sky bulldust about more wind and solar and vague talk about demand management, which is code for rationing. Now, keeping the lights on used to be the state government's job. But ever since federal renewable energy targets mucked up the economics of reliable coal-fired power stations, the states, always eager to handball responsibility to the feds, have basically just run interference, virtue signalling by promising ever more renewable power and higher targets, or blaming Canberra when the price goes up and the lights go out. And the private companies that have bought, often for a song, the old state-owned power assets, well, they haven't helped either. They've all been happy to harvest the consumer subsidy for renewables while running up their profit take by running down reliable baseload power assets, or, in the case of Liddell, refusing to sell a plant they want to close anyway, just so that it's the retail user, like us, we end up paying more, and their profits increase. Then take water. In the absence of any serious rain, lots of towns in New South Wales and Queensland have only a couple of months of water supply left. In these parts of these states, farmers have been hand-feeding their stock on and off, literally, for years. But hang on, drought is nothing new in Australia. What is new is the inability of governments to build dams. The coalition was first elected back in 2013, promising to end generations of dam phobia, and that's meant there was no big new dams built for 30 years, even though in that time Australia's population has grown by a third. Scott Morrison likes to bandy around a list of 30 new dams underway, but when you look at it, just about all of these projects are studies, or they're fixing, raising or expanding existing water projects, a lot of them actually irrigation. Rather, they're creating new dams like the sort we used to build. Now, I know the states are a problem, particularly here in Victoria, but that's not a reason for defeat, because without water, this arid continent loses much of its agricultural base. And when we're shipping out industries because we've fast-made power unaffordable, and the left want us to stop exporting resources like coal, just how do they think we're going to keep the economy going if we run ourselves dry? It's almost as though on these two big issues, power and water, government wants to fail. If that happens, you can just anticipate the script, can't you? The blame will be sheeted home to climate change. The vegan activists will be happy with the farmers gone, and without agriculture, sure, we will be poor as a nation and hungry, but without the methane, our global emissions will fall. I sincerely wish the Morrison government well. It would certainly have been a very sorry place if we're now 6 months into a shortened regime, but to be honest, I just want to see the Prime Minister sit behind his desk for a bit and start kicking his slow ministers into gear, because sadly, the next election is only 2 and a bit years away, and to fix things, there's a lot more work between now and then.